It is time. Welcome to today's webinar on agentic AI testing and validation brought to you by CCW Digital and Cyara. I'm Brian Cantor, Principal Analyst for CCW, and your host for today's discussion. Gaps between promise and practice are very easy to find, but rarely have they been as severe as they have been for AI-powered self-service experiences. With so many customers struggling with things like long wait times and limited business hours and the inability to choose their own channel, self-service was long supposed to be the solution. It was supposed to be the way we as businesses could scale customer centricity. But unfortunately, it has struggled to live up to the hype. For so long, this so-called AI self-service was nothing more than a fancy FAQ page. It might have had a name, it might have told some jokes, but ultimately, when push came to shove, it was going to give you the same generic, static service experience you could get from any old web search. Now, the push toward conversational, generative, and now agentic AI was supposed to address this problem, finally making these experiences more dynamic, more personalized, and more autonomous. But these technologies have created their own problems and introduced their own challenges and their own risks. And that is why consumer trust in AI self-service actually fell in 2025, and why 50% of brands feel that their AI deployments are progressing slower than expected. Now, this is not a fundamental challenge with the technology. It is not a sign that our head is in the wrong place. Instead, it means that we need to rethink how we approach these technologies, rethink what they mean in practice, and rethink how they're resonating with our users. Because let's face it, the need for agentic AI in both the customer and employee experiences, that's not going anywhere. That's not changing. And so that's why today's webinar will focus on what it takes to not only rave about the theoretical power of the technology, but dive deep into what it takes to validate it so that it actually lives up to the hype and actually transforms the service experience. As a reminder, you can ask questions at any time using the console on your screen. And without further ado, let's dive in and meet our speaker. So I say meet our speaker, but he and I have worked together quite a bit on these discussions. Really appreciate his understanding of what's going on in the customer experience market, what it takes to leverage AI to overcome problems, and what are some of the unasked questions that we need to address when it comes to our AI deployment. So Christoph, thrilled to have you, thrilled to have the Cyara team support here. Tell us about yourself and your company.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me again. You're full of energy again. I hope I can keep up with that. About myself, I'm still VP of Engineering and AI Strategy at Cyara. More than that, I'm former founder of the AI optimization platform Cyara is hosting. It's called Botium. Nowadays, all of our clients are racing to harness the power of AI. And so do we. We are providing the assurance and validation solutions for this new era of AI-driven customer experiences. That's what I do all the day.
Yeah, and I'd probably say this every time I introduce you, but I really like the approach that you guys take. You're fundamentally built on this notion of outside in, which has always been what we've been striving for in the customer experience space. And not just for technology, but for policies, for procedures, for those scripts we write, for the way we answer questions. It's always supposed to be designed with what the customer's looking for and what the customer experience is and how easy it is to get to what they're looking to achieve. And I think that that's been one of the fundamental misses with AI, has been this notion that we decide what those simple issues are that we automate. We decide whether it's successful or not. And that fundamentally counters the idea of customer centricity. So I love that we have people like you and companies like yours that are challenging that notion and saying, we need to know what this looks like in practice. We need to know whether it's delivering success in the eyes of the user. And so we'll dive into that and more. But at the high level, I want to start with, why are we even having this conversation? So, I talked about how we've been trying to make self-service work, that we've hit some roadblocks, that we've hit some challenges, but there has to be a reason why we're even trying so hard to make it work. And so when you think about the customer experience, when you think about some of those broader challenges, either for customers or for the operations that are trying to deliver it, what are some of those challenges to calibrate our discussion?
Well, actually, there are a lot, obviously, I usually bring it down to 4 dimensions when I'm talking to our clients or to someone in this domain. It's all about scale, first of all. It's about trust. It's about orchestration. And finally, it's about this unpredictability of AI, especially agentic AI. Starting with the first one, scale, you know that contact centers have to deal with thousands of calls, intents of different languages, of edge cases, all that stuff is pretty tricky to do human-led testing and validation. You can't keep up with what's happening here. Yeah? So I'm trying to say it's impossible to manually validate every branch, every path of such a conversation at scale that could be driven by AI. Second dimension, trust. We talked about this a bit in our last webinar that we did together. You know, AI systems must earn confidence by creating trust, and creating trust means they have to avoid inaccuracies, hallucinations. They can't be biased. You can't produce unethical responses. That's a pure no-go. And without automated, permanent, continuous, however you call it, validation, it's very hard or difficult to guarantee that these AI systems consistently behave in a way that really aligns with your brand values, with your compliance requirements, and so on. So those two are pretty obvious. What is maybe new is orchestration. Yeah? You have to keep in mind the contact center is a big ecosystem in the meanwhile. Yeah? And these AI agents that now everyone is trying to deploy, they don't live in isolation. They need to work seamlessly with human agents. When we think about agent assist technologies, they need to connect to backend system. They need to fit into existing workflows, and making that work again continuously, testing it, assuring it, is super complex and at the same time absolutely critical. And then the final one, and this is what is driving our whole industry at the moment, is this unpredictability. Unlike these traditional IVRs, traditional NLP-based bots, literally everything that was pre-scripted, these new AI agents are non-deterministic. Just tried to buy a new iPhone and trade in my old one, and you tried 5 times and you were 5 times put on a completely different customer journey, meaning the same input doesn't produce the same output all the time. And this means in testing and validation that, first of all, you just can't test once and assume it is fixed. You need to do it continuously. You need to do agentic testing on the other side to really explore all the variations and really guarantee reliable outcomes and customer experiences. So this is a mix of these 4 big challenges or dimensions that I see.
Yeah, and I think that obviously you encapsulated really the challenges of going above and beyond. We know that at this point in time, the customer service standard is rising. We know that customers expect it to be more personalized, not always more personal. In fact, they might want to talk less, but they want it to be more tailored to what they're looking for so that we can anticipate their needs, that we recognize them, that we know their challenges. We also know that they want, more complexity to not only the capabilities of whatever they interact with, but the quality of the resolution, meaning it's not as simple as saying, here's question A, I'm going to give you answer B. They want to know, okay, here's my problem. What is the unique way you're going to solve that? And when you think about trying to deliver an experience via self-service that can do that at scale and really take into account all these unpredictable and complex questions, all these different ways people are phrasing them, and also all the different outcomes they're looking for, that can be really challenging. Now, obviously, there's 2 ways businesses can go about it. They can go about it where it creates a poor experience, and that's definitely one that we want to be able to surface. And I think your points about needing to properly validate and really understand all the variables that go into a deployment and really go into an experience for customers, these are things that we're going to spend a lot of the webinar discussing. But I think the other element, which sometimes happens, is we sort of settle for the basic. Knowing that there's this risk, knowing that there's these challenges, we sometimes find self-service experiences that don't really offer much. I was interacting with a chatbot the other day, and it's definitely meant to be AI powered. It's definitely asking me, you can ask me any question you want. But the second you ask something that requires anything to say, look up information about me, anything that requires action to be taken, anything that requires anything beyond, yes, this is when your payment is due, or yes, this is when, how you withdraw money or whatever it might have been, that was beyond the scope of what it can offer. And what happens then is that not only do you not get any of the efficiency benefits, which you talked about needing to scale, not only do you not get any of the brand and intelligence benefits that come from me really interacting with it, but you also create a lack of trust. Because if I've always thought that human agents were superior to self-service, and then I deal with a self-service tool that's supposed to be the fancy new AI that's going to solve everything, and that too doesn't offer me anything I couldn't have gotten from an FAQ page, I suddenly don't believe this technology is rising to the occasion. I continue demanding that agent, representative. I keep looking for the 800 number. No one really wins there. So I think from your perspective, is this something that you're seeing that a lot of organizations are maybe settling or stuck in that basic self-service gear?
It's actually a great question and a great scenario you have just drawn. The reality is that most of the organizations out there get stuck at basic self-service AI because, the step to the more advanced conversational experience that you just described is much bigger than it looks on paper, yeah? or what all these AI agent vendors are promising out there. It's not just about training or doing a bit of fine tuning of a language model to answer FAQs. It's about making sure that your AI agent consistently delivers a great customer experience, consistently understands the intentions of clients, applies your business rules correctly, provides experiences at the end of the day that actually reduce effort rather than frustrate you as a customer. And that's way much more than taking GPT and fine tuning it a bit. And all of that while building trust, as mentioned before, by avoiding hallucinations, unethical behavior, all that stuff. So that's a big thing to achieve. And again, in the nature of my job, I always have to think about the validation part. This is still a lot of orgs try to do this human-led still, and frankly, this simply doesn't scale with all these infinite customer journeys we just spoke about. Yeah? And you have then these dimensions of intent, channel being used, context, or even something easy like language. Yeah? Just test all your paths in all languages. Everyone hears in this sentence that this is utmost impossible. And this is why many organizations end up limiting their AI implementations to a very basic use case. And that's a bit of a shame. But anything beyond at the moment becomes unmanageable for a lot of them. And to break through the ceiling, so to say, you need to automate things. You need to bring in AI-led CX assurance that can permanently test, validate, optimize all these journeys that you are building with AI, and you need to do it at scale. And without that, these companies, these organizations, either have to accept the risk of poor customer experiences, and I think that's nothing you can accept. Or on the other side, you keep your AI ambitions very limited. And, this is exactly the gap where we are coming in and where we are having the back of our clients to close exactly this gap.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really important when you say that, they settle for that basic, I referenced this as well, is that as we talked about earlier, the self-service revolution, the emphasis on giving customers more power and more autonomy, that's existing for a reason. It's existing because wait times are too long. It's existing because customers can't get the help they're looking for elsewhere. It's existing because we know that we have so many active and passive touch points with customers. And if we don't deliver a great experience across all of them, we never know which one is going to be that point that breaks the relationship, that sends the wrong message. And so we always want to be firing on all cylinders, putting our best foot forward. And that means delivering great service. Now, the bad news is a lot of organizations haven't been doing it. The good news is Agentic AI is positioned as a solution to a lot of these challenges, right? It's positioned as a way, to your point, to be more human-like, not necessarily in terms of it's going to feel like you're talking to a literal person, but in that it can do human-like things as far as more reasoning capabilities, more ability to, take autonomous action, more ability to process and engage in natural language, things that are supposed to be valuable. But At the same time, I know that we've often blurred the lines when it comes to different types of AI technology. Back when we were looking at conversational AI chatbots, I feel like everyone was talking about the exact same ability to take action, whether it was true or not, that we are for agentic. So before we dive into sort of how we optimize agentic AI rollouts, how we validate the experience, can you walk us through maybe what's different here, maybe some examples of where you see it transforming the experience in a very specific way?
Yeah. So what you just described, I would sum up as advanced customer experiences. In short, agentic AI isn't just answering questions. It's taking you, or it's taking on active roles in customer engagement, also in employee empowerment when we think about agent assist, and also in operational efficiency and optimization. So to go a bit into details, advanced customer experiences. Yeah, we all know from talking to ChatGPT and Gemini and all these things, how human-like they feel, and this is something that was pretty tough to deliver back in the days with NLP and NLU based bots. To script all of that, and this unpredictable behavior on the one side is of course a nightmare for testing and assurance, but from a customer perspective, it feels supernatural. It feels personalized. And it's this AI agents powering this advanced self-service, understanding literally every intent, generating personalized responses for you, and being able to resolve really complex issues without any human intervention. This is where we all are heading to. And I'm coming back to my example with, you know, uh, it wasn't Apple's AI agent. It was another store where I ordered a phone, but it was like, hey, I want to have a new iPhone Pro 17, 512 gigs, and I want to trade in my old one. And the AI agent was smart enough to see or to get my Apple ID from the phone number, and therefore it knew I'm using now an iPhone 13, and immediately came back with, this is the trade-in price, and the new phone is available in the store 2 streets away from your house or where you are right now. So this is an amazing customer experience compared to doing this with NLP-based bots or an old school IVR with everything pre-scripted and 10 times back and forth. So this is a world I want to live in and where my kids should grow up. If it works, if it doesn't, it's of course a nightmare. Where we need to emphasize a bit on, of course, also is agent assist. Yeah, empowering human agents is, of course, a big thing, and I think we will see this for a few years now till everything goes agentic. And I think it will also stay. Yeah, there will be always human agents for, I don't know, sensitive topics, critical situations in your life, and so on. But agent assist in the meanwhile is making AI acting as a real-time co-pilot for you, as a live agent, and will summarize all the interactions, surface knowledge, even suggest the next best action for agents, so that the human being can really focus in the conversation on, I don't know, problem solving or empathy if it's something critical. Yeah, so this is a real game changer, and this is why all the big contact center providers, of course, have agent assist also enabled in their platforms. And yeah, one thing I don't want to forget, I'm coming back to operational optimization again. With AI in customer journeys, you can permanently monitor every interaction. You can spot inefficiencies immediately. You can improve the whole orchestration, workflows, compliance, even the workflows management. So I would sum it up in some other words by saying, in this era we are automating now the very things that are impossible to do at a human scale with AI, and that's something cool.
Yeah, and that's such an important point there. I think when we talk about why it's so essential, it's not only essential because we know customers go to self-service first, and we know they're interacting with these touch points, and we know that we want the AI-powered self-service experience to be powerful for them. It's also essential because so much of what we want to do as an overall operation, as far as making our human agents more capable of being empathetic and critical thinkers, better understanding how customers are behaving, things that we know are critical, these only happen when that AI layer really functions as it's supposed to. And so having the power of advanced technology that can be more autonomous, that can be more human-like, more conversational, that's going to be so important. But for all the value, when you start to talk about all these advantages, as you alluded to much earlier, and I didn't forget, I just had a progression here, but you alluded to the fact that now it makes the conversation flows much less predictable. It makes the actions much less predictable. And so I'd imagine that that creates a lot of headache when it comes to, really what it takes to properly validate and understand how this technology is working. And so, I think that a lot of times when we have these webinars, the often comment that we always close with what's the first step I can take? Or how do I put AI into action? No, I know your argument is that the deployment, the action is not that hard. That's not the challenging part. In fact, technology today makes it very easy to get started. What maybe isn't as easy is to, once you start, ensure you're moving in the right direction. So how do you think about some of those challenges once you've deployed to ensure that you're getting the value that you're looking for?
Yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. I would have used exactly the same words. Deployment is not or no longer the hurdle out there. The technology is there. These large, small micro language models are everywhere, and all the vendors are rushing to the market with these pre-built AI agents that promise just a little bit of fine tuning. So the deploying an AI agent in a contact center is really not hard anymore. But the real challenge, as we just discussed already in the last 10 minutes, lies somewhere else. It's first of all about regulatory and compliance pressure. This is something that people often forget. Contact centers typically operate in highly regulated environments, talking about finance, healthcare, telecom, and all these environments, all these domains deal with very private customer data, meaning every single AI-driven interaction must comply with laws, must comply with data protection regulations, and at the end of the day, of course, also with your brand policies. And as it is so important, I'm bringing back trust again. AI agents are simply open to deliver inaccurate data, to hallucinate, to show bias based on the data they are trained on, or to be misused. And if customers lose trust in an AI-driven interaction, it could take years to rebuild that confidence in your brand. So it's always better to test it up front. And yeah, third, as we also discussed, there is this unpredictable nature of AI. These artificial agents that don't behave like these traditional NLP-based bots or the scripted IVRs, where an input A always leads to an output B. This era is gone. Instead, we have now infinite, unpredictable conversational journeys, and this unpredictability is powerful for personalization, as I said before. For a user, it's super cool. If I ask 10 times the same thing, then I get 10 times a slightly different answer and personalized for me as a user. But it becomes, of course, a nightmare for the QA guys, for the people who need to test and validate it. So yeah, coming back to the deployment and your question, I think while the technology stack for deploying AI agents is already super rich, and I get it why so many vendors are offering this. It sounds like a no-brainer. There are contact centers with 100,000 human agents there, also helping them with technology sounds to be a no-brainer. But the real challenge, apart from deploying these AI engines, is really to test them, to validate them at scale, to ensure ethically correct behavior, to be compliant, to be also consistent across every possible customer journey and channel. And that's a super hard part, and that's actually where a lot of innovation is happening here at Cyara at the moment to make this happen for all clients.
Yeah, and I think this is not only, obviously you work with so many clients, so many people in the industry, so you're speaking from a position of expertise, but I can confirm that this is not just anecdotal data. This is very much validated by what our audience is showing. So when we ask people essentially what's the number one area where you have to start to overachieve for customers in 2025 and 2026, security and privacy of communication was really important. So understanding, okay, if we want these AI tools to be more personalized, if we want them to be more dynamic and conversational, that's going to create some risks. And we have to understand, like, have we taken the appropriate measures to mitigate those risks, to close any open doors and ensure everything's secure? And then we also asked the question in our most recent market study, which was, what are some of the big concerns you have as customers increasingly engage with your AI? And number one, unsurprisingly, was inaccuracies and hallucinations. I can tell you, I was actually working with, I'm not going to say which one, but I was working with a popular chatbot out there to understand, see if they can come up with any Seinfeld related trivia team names for my trivia team at, the local bar. And as I was going through it, it came up with two completely hallucinated episodes, like things that have never happened. Trust me, I've watched Seinfeld every episode 60, 70 times. I know that these did not happen. I was starting to lose my mind. And what was cool was how human like it was, because it was very stubborn in insisting that these things happened, but obviously it was wrong. Now, again, this is a cute little thing. It's a Seinfeld trivia name, right? But when you're talking about, oh, is it going to hallucinate a treatment you received or a stock you invested in and you're trying to get support, suddenly the stakes are really significant. So you understand why that fear can be very real. And then, other areas that were really important were compliance and regulatory ranked as number two, and autonomy ranked as number three. Now, when we think of all the advantages of agentic AI, it directly puts us in the crosshairs of those three challenges. And so, without having that appropriate approach to testing and validation, you're going to really look at some of those big risks and not feel very good about your deployment. So, understanding how to go about this is so important. So, we talked about kind of why this is important. We started to talk about some of the key elements of it. But Christoph, I'm wondering if you give us a more practical sort of framework for maybe where prior validation has fallen short and what the appropriate approach looks like now, be it as far as strategies, be it as far as questions to ask, things to get yourself on the right direction when it comes to validating your AI deployments.
Yes, let me make one comment to something you said before I answer that question, because I think it's super important. We're talking about inaccuracies, and you obviously got inaccurate data. I think this will be a huge challenge for our society in the near future, because there are a lot of people out there who will take it for gospel, whatever they get from such an AI agent. And it's big companies, it's big names. Yeah, it's Google's Gemini, it's Google, and it's Microsoft's Copilot, and it's OpenAI's ChatGPT. These are the most successful tech companies around the globe. So if I ask something and get an answer, why should I doubt it? And that's critical, yeah, for society. And you mentioned stocks and so on. This is something. If I would be running a bank, a finance institution, this is something I want to desperately avoid. My AI agent talking about the stock markets, or even worse, giving financial advice, things like that. This is typically misuse of an AI agent from my point of view. But yeah, just wanted to make this comment. So let me recap your question. It was help me once again with a
Yeah.
correct.
So ultimately, and one thing I just want to add here is I think you bring up a good point, which is that sometimes it's not about optimizing the AI conversation itself. Sometimes it's about optimizing the journey and deciding where AI fits in. And I think that's something we have to come to grips with, that the most empathetic thing or the most effective thing is not always going to be, let's try to make that chat bot or that AI agent conversation seem a little bit more human and emotional. Let's instead say, here's where it just doesn't make sense. And the best journey is to get them away from it. So I think that looking at everything at the journey level is really great recommendations. But to get to the specific question, it was, obviously we know that the pressure to validate, the pressure to test, the pressure to mitigate these risks is so high. And we know that prior methods have fallen short. But what do the good methods look like? What are the questions to ask? What are the processes to deploy? What are the best practices? What can you tell us about the appropriate validation framework?
Yes, yes, yes. Got it. So let me start with the results. Yeah? So the outcome of assurance and testing is no longer this binary pass or fail, this red or green that it was for many years. Yeah? We are now capturing a complete picture of a customer journey with a CX quality score that identifies, hey, was this a great conversation? Yeah? I can achieve my goal in a conversation. I can ask you what makes 2 times 2, and if it takes 10 minutes till I find out it's 4, yeah, then it was a bad customer journey, obviously somewhere. And we will, we are already testing and capturing here the sentiment of the customer journey, the tone, the overall smoothness of this whole journey. Yeah? This is what agentic AI can deliver for us. So we also need to test it, and it's not only red and green anymore, and it's not only about, hey, checking whether this AI agent technically worked. It's about checking, did it deliver a great customer experience. And we as Cyara have this mission of eradicating bad customer experiences. In the past, we said we deliver customer smiles, and this is getting more and more important with agentic AI or AI agents in general. Thinking about this non-deterministic or unpredictable behavior, well, this is at the moment the holy grail of CX assurance. Unlike these traditional contact centers, once again, AI agents are simply unpredictable. You can ask the same question 10 times, you will get slightly different answers. So, how can you actually test this? How can you rely on these static scripts that we were using in the past? And the answer is easy. You can't anymore. This scripted testing and validation is gone. Instead, you need agentic testing to deal with agentic AI on the other side. And this is exactly what we are building for our clients, where at the end of the day, our AI agents are in real time, dynamically chasing an intention, a predefined goal of this test. Technically, we would call it an objective. And, just like a real tester, our AI stack evaluates here the whole customer experience at every single step of a conversation. Exactly what a human tester would do, but at scale for all these infinite journeys that are out there. And that's how we deal with it. We're testing dynamically, we're testing at scale with agentic AI on our side that thinks and behaves like a real customer at the end of the day.
So I don't want to, everything you said there is valuable and I don't want to be reductive, but I really resonated with one thing in particular, which was the notion that really understanding what this means for customer sentiment and what it looks like. Because I think that even, when we talk of just the very idea of validation and testing is moving this conversation in the right direction. But frankly, when we only look at pure accuracy or we only look at pure compliance, we forget that at the end of the day, why are we having this conversation? It's to make customers happier and more empowered and make a more satisfying experience. And if like we have a bot or we have an AI agent that technically says all the right stuff, does what it's supposed to, doesn't go off the rails, that's only half the battle. The other half is this creating more value for the customer? Is it worthwhile? Is it taking 55 minutes for them to do something that they previously only took 5 minutes to do when they were getting live agent assistance? And so I think that ultimately, like understanding what this is for from an experiential standpoint, not only what it is from a raw fact and accuracy standpoint is so important. And I'm glad that you, as you're thinking about your approach to validation, are kind of considering all sides of the coin. You're considering literally is it performing the way it needs to, but also when it comes time to that connecting with the customer, building that sentiment, is it driving the right outcomes? And I think that's really key. One other thing I want to look at here is that, we can talk about validation. I know, that's something that's very near and dear to your heart, something that you're going to continue to stress, and something that, frankly, the entire industry needs to be doing. But we also know that there are some things to do before the deployment that can put you on the right track. Doesn't solve your problem, but it does create a higher probability of success. And so things like questions to ask vendors or questions to ask your internal IT team to understand your readiness. What are some recommendations you have there?
Yeah, I actually have a lot. Let me just once again make a comment to what you said, because I think it's a great fit. Personal experience. I tried yesterday to generate a picture, and the point I want to make is there is not a lot of room for me and I guess also other users bringing up patience for AI failing. So with a human agent, it's a different thing. That's a real person. You're in a conversation, and there's some forgiveness. I tried to create a picture, and with Gemini's new nano banana model, a great picture, but I was like resize it to a certain size, and they gave it the pixels, and it said here's the resized pixel, and it's this resized picture, but it simply was not. Yeah? And I tried again and said resize it to exactly this format, and it came back again and said here it is. Yeah? And I'm like, what the hell, it is not. Yeah? And then I was after 2 or 3 attempts already pretty upset, and I think that's also a challenge for AI driven customer experiences. People know that this technology has the ability to work great, being used in the right way, but there is not a lot of room for forgiveness or patience. Um, Coming to your questions, what can what are typically questions we could ask out there? So, from my point of view, when you start evaluating here vendors in this space, your partner to build and drive a contact center, so then the questions shouldn't be about or around the size of the language model they offer, or how quickly they could deploy an AI agent for you. As we had it before, that the technology stack, this is solved. Yeah, check mark. All these models out there, especially the big ones, are capable of doing what most contact centers need. The real questions are, or that I would ask are, hey, how do you validate your model? How do you measure success of it? How can you give me confidence that this AI agent we are building together is behaving responsible? And the truth there is that this agentic AI testing and validation is and will be the foundation for success. Without it, you are essentially flying or driving blind. You don't know really if your AI agent is improving the customer experience, if it's staying compliant, if it's maintaining trust in every single conversation. And without that, I would struggle. Someone has to make the go live decision and say, we put this in front of our clients. I would struggle to do that without having here continuous testing and validation in place. On the other side, if you have it, well, then you have reached this level to innovate faster, to expand confidently, and to turn your AI into a real competitive advantage to your competitors. And yeah, as we know, as we both know, is longer now. So between us, the the only CX assurance provider out there who can deliver this end-to-end at scale is Cyara. And if one of these vendors you're talking to is not working with us, it maybe a good move to talk to another one.
Yeah, I think that understanding the consequences is so important. I think so many vendors in the space, they want to distance themselves from just that kind of tech lover who's working out of a garage, who knows all the tech. They want to say that they're going to be a partner, that they know the customer contact industry, all stuff that does matter. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you absolutely want to look for the vendor that cares about a partnership, that understands your industry, that understands your function. But my point is that they say this, but what they're implying is that they're going to be with you all the way, that they're going to be with you to understand, how it's actually functioning once it's deployed, once you increase the number of use cases, once you scale it. And yet, if they, to your point, don't have a robust validation mechanism in place, then they're not really able to achieve that. They're not really able to say, how do we go from let's pick a few very minor low stakes use cases and let's go a lot bigger and not have any risks, not have any concerns, not have any problems when customers interact. The only way to do that is to have the appropriate approach to validation, the appropriate approach to asking the right questions of, okay, it's hitting this, doing this goal, but is it doing that goal? It's working for making employees' lives a little faster, but is making customers' lives a little better. Without answering those questions repeatedly and consistently challenging the technology to improve and to be more accurate and to be more effective and to be more resonant, you're not going to get where you're looking to go. So I think that's really important. Now, speaking of looking where we're trying to go, where do you see this industry ultimately going? Because we know the technology is theoretically there. We know the customer and employee and business demand is theoretically there, but we also know that there's a lot of roadblocks. I mean, we could talk about validation and testing. Right now, our data shows that only about 24% of contact center leaders are doing a significant amount of testing of their AI deployments and their AI solutions. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So as you think about the risks, the rewards, the opportunities, the challenges, where are we headed? What do we need to look at how AI is going to transform customer contact over the next few years?
Yeah, we are absolutely in this AI era. We are not heading to it. We are actually there. And the customer support, the customer experience domain is where you really have measurable, clear impact. Yeah, it's in a lot of other domains, it's like, yeah, we need to leverage AI, but it's hard to really measure its success. In our domain, it's rather easy to say, well, with AI, we could take, I don't know, 10,000 calls this week, and at the end, 90% of our clients hit the thumbs up, telling us this was a great customer experience. So this is the setting we are in, and I cannot think of a lot of other domains where AI is already working that good or delivering so much if it's done in the right way. I mean, the challenge stays. We talked in the last 25 minutes about unpredictable behavior and all the testing being needed or needed to be done. But if you play your cards right, AI is a game changer for these contact centers. And I can tell you this is not confident. 100% of our users are at least experimenting with AI. So everyone sees that coming. What I don't see is now in the next quarter everyone being fully agentic. So the domain will take some time to adapt. We are seeing already a lot of hybrid contact centers. Still some scripted flows for very strategic business cases, and then at certain points AI infused journeys. So this is what is happening a lot at the moment. A lot of agent assist is already being leveraged for something easy like summing up a conversation. That's really a super easy use case for AI and a no-brainer to leverage it. But ultimately, I would be very surprised if we talk, I don't know, let's say in 24 months, and still the majority of contact centers is not AI driven. So that's not going to happen. We are definitely heading to this agentic AI world. That's at least from my point of view.
So yeah, and I think we're at the 45-minute mark or so. So I do have, I do want to make sure we get a few questions out, but probably can't get to all those. I know Christoph and the team will be happy to follow up with those whose questions we don't get to, but two that I see here are really critical. So one really is looking at the time frames. This person's asking, how long should I be testing my AI deployments before I really put them in front of customers?
Yeah, it's hard to give now something like hours, minutes, seconds. It depends, of course, on the use case. Testing and quality assurance always was and always will be a risk-based domain. So also, 20 years ago, testing a small calculator that I've built in Java was already utmost impossible because you would have needed to test every single number combination. And if it only can do, multiply and add and subtract numbers. With agentic AI or AI in general, this is of course now a big thing. We talked about this in the last 45 minutes. It's an infinite number of potential customer journeys. But coming back to risk-based, well, you need to make sure you have high coverage in your high business risks, in your main journeys. And what hasn't changed also not with AI is 80% of all incoming customer support requests usually are turning around the same top 5 topics. And actually they are pretty similar for our clients in their own domain. And it's if you're telecom, the number one intent is the new iPhone. available in the store? And the number two is there a 5G network where I'm living? And so on. And you need to make sure that those 80% are really working perfectly in terms of risk-based testing. The other 20% is, the common per ratio principle. Testing those remaining 20% with high coverage will cost you so much. It probably makes more sense not to have the human in the loop, human agent hand over these things. But yeah, the key to success is here automation, as I also said during our conversation. There's no way to do this testing and assurance human-led at scale with AI being involved.
And then this last question is very great because it really speaks to one of the big trends in the space, which is understanding. And so our data actually showed that inability to explain your issue naturally is one of the main reasons why people escalate away from self-service experiences. So this person asks, to what extent can language and test or can AI testing and validation account for different languages out there?
Oh, that's actually a great one. Testing multiple languages in the past was a huge thing. We even, years ago, were trying to have native speaker for all major languages out there. With AI, this became actually pretty easy. These language models are so good in testing journeys in different languages. What stays with AI is you need to do these tests. You cannot expect if a customer journey is working in English that it will also in German or Italian, French, whatever. But that's with AI being evolved, easy is maybe the wrong word, but to give an idea with the agentic AI testing in Cyara, you would simply instruct our AI agent to test the journey in your 5 favorite languages, and it will simply do it. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, so well, Christoph, as always, I want to thank you and the Cyara team for tremendous insights here. Ultimately, the key takeaway is that we've probably been asking the wrong questions as a community when it comes to the rise of AI and specifically agentic AI. We're focusing on what are the capabilities, how easy is it to deploy, and is it generally going to be accurate enough to represent my business well? I think at the high level, we know the technology has a lot of capabilities. It can do a lot in the customer journey. We know that it's actually pretty easy to deploy. A lot of vendors are making amazing technology out there that is designed for you to not have to be a multi-level certified IT expert to get some value out of it. And of course, yes, hallucinations and risks aside, like generally the communication can be effective for a lot of different business use cases. But at the end of the day, it's not about whether we feel like we're checking these boxes internally. It's about when our customers go to interact with this, is it putting our brand's best foot forward? Is it making their life easier? Is it communicating information not only accurately, but in the way they want to receive it? Is it taking the actions they're expecting? Is it moving as efficiently as possible? Does it facilitate a seamless journey between different AI agents, between AI and human agents? If the answer to these, if you can't have a resounding yes, whether that's because you can't test every use case, whether because you haven't thought about certain questions, that's where you're going to find gaps in the customer experience. That's when you're going to find gaps in AI trust. And that's when you're going to find a lack of long-term adoption. So the key here is to start focusing not on all the theoretical made-up challenges about deployment, but instead the very real challenges about validating the experience in the eyes of the user, in the eyes of the brand, in the eyes of the industry. When you do that, you take all the power of AI, you channel it in the right direction, and you start to see a better customer experience. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us, for your great questions, for your commitment to elevating AI. On behalf of CCW Digital and Cyara, we'll see you next time.